Hi, and welcome. This is Inside with Out Now, a live brought to you by volunteers with Refuse Fascism. I'm Sam, and I'm one of those volunteers, and I'm so glad that you are tuning in to join us. Inside with Out Now, again, is a live brought to you by volunteers with Refuse Fascism. Refuse Fascism, in case you don't know, is a movement of volunteers coming from diverse perspectives, united around the recognition that the Trump-Pence regime poses a catastrophic danger to all of humanity, and that it must be driven from power through sustained mass, nonviolent protests now. And tonight we're going to get into what's the most fitting way to celebrate Trump's birthday. It's this Sunday, and we want to hear your thoughts, your ideas, and your questions. We're going to be joined by Coco of the RefuseFascism.org editorial board momentarily to get into all this. And so please put your comments, your thoughts, your ideas, your questions into the chat, and make sure that you share this. If you're on Facebook, we encourage you to host a watch party. And if you are on Twitter, be sure to DM, retweet this, and share it if you are on YouTube watching us live. And for those of you who are joining and watch regularly but are podcast fans, we want to let you know that Inside with Out Now is also a podcast. And you can check it out on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and the first 3 episodes are posted. In just a moment, I'm going to give a little bit of an update and then bring Coco on to the conversation. Again, the topic is what's the most fitting way to celebrate Trump's birthday, celebrate this Sunday. So, again, we want to hear your ideas, your questions, your thoughts. Post them in the comments. Continue to share. And I want to let everyone know that if you appreciate these lives that are streamed on multiple platforms, they cost money. If you enjoy listening to podcasts that come out from Inside with Out Now, we're trying to order more equipment to increase our quality of sound and visuals on these. That costs funds. And all the posters, the stickers, the flyers that we're getting out in very large quantities, they cost funds, and it only is possible with your donations. 2 generous donors are matching all donations up to $1,500. So before we get started, I want to make sure that you take a moment and make a donation. Give $5, $10, give $45 to send Trump on a one-way ticket out of the White House and take his fascist regime with him. You can Venmo, Refuse-Fascism. You can use Cash App, Refuse Fascism, or on PayPal. So I hope that you'll do those things to support this movement. Again, welcome. This is Inside with Out Now, a live brought to you by volunteers with Refuse Fascism. I'm Sam. I'm one of those volunteers. And tonight we're getting into what's the most fitting way to celebrate Trump's birthday this Sunday. And we're going to be joined by Coco and Sarah Roark from the Refuse Fascism editorial board. Before I bring them on, I want to give a little bit of an update. The regime headed by Donald Trump and Mike Pence is escalating their fascist program, upending the rule of law, and emboldening fascist social forces cohered around the regime. The actions I share are not isolated outrages. They are components of an overall offensive by a fascist movement intent on complete domination. This is a regime that must be stopped and can only be stopped by the power of the people. They must be driven from power before they fully consolidate their rule. In a dress rehearsal for the general elections in November, if the fascists in power choose to allow those elections to go forward, we saw a disastrously illegitimate election go down in Georgia. For the second time in a row, massive numbers of Georgians, overwhelmingly Black, were systematically disenfranchised on Election Day. This wasn't done in the shadows. It wasn't a one-off. And it wasn't just Georgia. The Supreme Court ruling that gutted the Voting Rights Act, enabling much of this misconduct, applies to the whole of the South, while gerrymandering, voter roll purges, voter ID laws, and other elements of voter suppression apply nationwide. And all of this can be escalated and likely will be escalated if this regime remains in power. Meanwhile, Trump tweeted that not only will he designate Antifa a terrorist organization, but that a 75-year-old peace activist who was brutalized on camera by Buffalo police and then left to bleed from his head on the sidewalk was an Antifa provocateur. This is not only ludicrous, but extremely dangerous. This part of Trump's attempt to legitimize the total crushing of all dissent. And it also contributes to the widespread push to separate good protesters from bad protesters, neutering the righteous uprising to murder by the police. Meanwhile, as Trump continues to maintain various elements of the military in a state of readiness to attack protesters on U.S. soil and continues to back up the most vile brutality on behalf of the militarized police, his loyal foot soldiers at ICE are planning to spend $18 million on new, more powerful tasers and training at a military base named after a Confederate general, no less, to use them. And I wanted to just share part of a thread that was just put out by At the RevComs that I thought was really, really right on. There is a direct line from the Confederacy to the fascists of today. It's a quote by Bob Avakian, and a direct connection between their white supremacy and their America First militarism. Just look at Trump's tweets today defending military bases named after Confederates. In fact, most of these bases were created and named as part of a deal with the Jim Crow South in order to unite the country to wage war abroad. Slavery, Jim Crow compromises with white supremacy, imperialist wars, Trump's right. All this is the great American heritage. There's a Confederate general in the White House. The question now is, will you compromise with that and just hope the election resolves this? Or will you act to drive this regime out through the power of the people? And so we're going to get into this tonight. We're going to be talking with Coco and Sarah about plans for this Sunday. What's the most fitting way to celebrate Trump's birthday? Again, so glad that you're tuning in to Inside Without Now, a live brought to you by volunteers with Refuse Fascism. I want to bring Coco and Sarah in. Hi.
Hey.
Good evening or good morning to you, Sarah.
Good. Yep. It's good to see y'all.
Glad to be with you.
Having a little bit of technical trouble.
Well, on our end, we can hear you, so that's a great thing.
Okay.
And we can see you, we can hear you. It looks good on our end.
Okay, well
I can't
it's the
see
phone,
Sarah,
so
but
I'm having
I
to
can
hold
hear
it up,
her.
so apologies. If I can get the bigger screen working, then I'll have that happening. But hi, guys.
Hi. Hi, Sarah.
Hoping that the two of you could talk a little bit about what are we calling for this, what is Refuse Fascism calling for this Sunday and why? I don't know. Maybe Coco, if you wanted to go, and then Sarah.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, I think Sam did a good job of laying out what the situation is and why this regime and, Trump as the head of this regime is a catastrophic danger. And he is continuing to make things worse every day. So Trump's birthday is this Sunday, and we cannot let that go without trying to give him a miserable birthday. So I'm going to start by reading the flyer that I don't know if we're going to actually have it as a flyer, but this is a sort of a call, I guess. It starts with, what's a fitting way to celebrate, and I think we always have to put that in quotation marks, what's a fitting way to celebrate Trump's birthday? Sunday, June 14th, 4 p.m., Lafayette Park in D.C. and everywhere. No more police murder of black people, no fascist police state, no fascist military war on the people. Trump Pence out now. The Trump-Pence regime is escalating its threats against protesters. RefuseFascism.org calls for an escalation of nonviolent resistance in this fight for justice. We are at a serious crossroads. Trump is not just speaking the language of fascism, he's acting on it, calling out the military and his fascist shock troops and labeling righteous protesters domestic terrorists. Ominous steps towards consolidating an American fascism. White supremacy, xenophobia, patriarchy wrapped in the Bible and the American flag. But an uprising of the people has proven that they are not all powerful. We are the force that can stop this regime. Millions of us in cities and towns across the country demanding Trump Pence out now. And every day shows us even more starkly, Trump and his whole regime must go now. Give the world a Trump birthday to remember and a reason to rejoice. Trump Pence out now. And then we have some additional hashtags, hashtag bunker birthday and hashtag boy bye. And I think we'll hear more about the social media campaign around this. Hopefully you're following us at Refuse Fascism on all platforms, and you can see some of the stuff that we've already been putting out. But I have more to say. I can talk a little bit more about what we envision for this, but basically this is a day for us to be politically provocative and really set people's sights on how intolerable this regime is and what we need to do now. And also drawing forward the creativity of the masses. I'm sure you've all seen that the wall that they put up, the fence that they put up in front of the White House is what got covered with protest signs, including signs for Refuse Fascism. And, every moment that we can lift up people's sights with these really defiant and creative actions, we have to seize on that. So I think I'll stop there. I have more to say, but I'm sure Sarah has stuff that she wants to say, and then you can come back to me, Sam.
Sure. I know that Sarah's having a little tech trouble. We were unable, people were letting me know that they were unable to see her. I'm going to see if I can pull her back in, but I don't think that she's available right now due to technical trouble.
Okay. If not, I can keep talking, or you could ask me something.
Yeah, so I think she's going to try again. I think if you can just tell us more, that would be great. And then when and if she's able, we'll be so glad to hear from her as well.
Yeah. So, in the midst of all this, in addition to the things that Sam laid out, look at the terrain here. We had more than 14 days of protests that grew larger, beautiful, undeterred, defying curfews in the face of rubber bullets and tear gas. People kept coming out. Suddenly the people seized the initiative and did not let go. This is a much more favorable situation for us who have been at this for a while. And for those of you who don't know, the mission, Refuse Fascism, has one mission, and that is to drive out a fascist regime that is a catastrophic danger to all of humanity, a fascist regime with its finger on the nuclear button, through the actions of the masses of people who are in the streets in sustained nonviolent protest, demanding Trump Pence out now, demanding that the regime go. So there are people who are hungry for this nightmare to be over, and they don't necessarily know how to end it, but they know that they want Trump and Pence out. They want these killings of black people to end. They want this white supremacy to end. But they've taken an initial step towards that. And we are the organization that needs to bring our analysis and our demand and our knowledge of how to actually resolve this situation, because we've been studying it for a long time. We need to bring that out. So, you know, in the midst of, what did we find out in 2 weeks? In 2 weeks, we found out that people in the streets has tremendous power for changing, repolarizing people, changing the whole debate. And think about 3 weeks ago, who had the initiative? Not, maybe there was more than that. I'm losing track of time. But when these like armed militias stormed the Michigan State House, who had the initiative then? It was these like the worst acting with passionate intensity. Well, that's at least been equalized now. The whole political equation has changed. And then in response to that, look at what Trump threw at it. He threw a gauntlet down to the people, clearing Lafayette Park, calling out the military, having helicopters hover above protesters, peaceful protesters, daring to utter George Floyd's name, talking about the economy when he was talking about the economy, and then tweeting later, "No kneeling." You know, he's making it very clear that the first triad of this fascism is white supremacy. And once they gain the upper hand again, they are not going to tolerate people in the streets demanding and saying Black Lives Matter. He's making that clear, so the people have to throw this gauntlet back at them. You're going to see some video of agitation and speeches on the weekend, and you'll see the people who are out in the streets talking about this. This is what's necessary. And at the same time, well, I want to talk a little bit there's a Sights and Sounds feature on the website right now, and I really think everyone should look at it if you haven't seen it. This past weekend, people were in DC and all over the country raising these demands, and those demands came from the situation of police killing Black people over and over again, and Trump calling out the military to suppress it, calling for total domination in the streets. And this weekend, Refuse Fascism had a huge impact. They mobilized hundreds of people to say "fuck Trump" in front of the White House, and to say, to chant "Trump Pence out now." And we want to build on that this weekend. We want to show a model of people throwing this gauntlet back at Trump. And the message needs to be really irreverent. The spirit of "fuck Trump," but, pack your fascist ass regime and go. And that needs to spread very widely. And people are very receptive to this. And we need to prepare. We are preparing to lead this struggle where it needs to go. And we also need to prepare people to win this demand. Because it is more within our reach than it has
I can't hear
ever
you,
been.
Coco. Can you say something?
Oh, can you hear me? Did I lose Sam? So I just want to say, when you're out there, get out a lot of posters and stickers out, get people to scan the QR code to the statement of conscience, which still has a lot of substance that's relevant. Wear your masks, agitate, and have fun. And be looking for the people who show promise to be the leaders of this movement, of all these youth that are newly awakened. Go and get those people, because the future of these youth who are out in the streets right now really does depend on what you're bringing them and what we're bringing them. So I hope you were able to hear the last part of that, Sam.
All of it. All of it. I just think Sarah was having some technical trouble again. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But we could hear you. And I think that was really helpful. I wanna show some of the things that that Coco was talking about for those who are just joining. This is Inside Without Now, a live brought to you by Volunteers with Refused Fascism. I'm Sam. I'm one of those volunteers. And I want to share with you some of what was on the streets Saturday, both in Minneapolis and in DC. There were protests nationwide, but we're just going to show a couple clips. And before I do that, I just want to repeat for those who are joining that tonight we're getting into what's the most fitting way to celebrate Trump's birthday. And I think that it's really important that we are able to go out really broadly, to starting like right now, and go to all your friends, all your family, everybody on your social media network, and put to them that if you think Donald Trump's birthday, Sunday, June 14th, is the perfect day to be in the streets across the country, in every state, protesting and demanding his removal, then they need to be part of this. They need to be part of demanding Trump hands out now, boy bye, and make it a bunker birthday. What better gift could the people possibly give him, but more importantly, give the people of the world? So that's what we're getting into. And to that end, I'm going to share a couple short clips to give you a sense of what we're calling for needs to be in the streets. And these come from June 6th protests. And the first one is of Sarah Taylor in Minneapolis.
Spoke before about how Trump threw down a gauntlet, threatened to bring out the military, to put Antifa and others in prison for 10 years. We must not allow that. That is an attack on everybody who stood up. Am I right? All across the world last year, people went into the streets and they drove out hated regimes. They did it through the power of the people. In 15 days, they drove out the governor of Puerto Rico. They went in the streets and drove out the dictator in Lebanon. We have seen our power in the streets here. We have left the rulers on their heels. Right. And now they are getting ready to come down on people, to bring the hammer. And we must not allow. Carl Dick spoke before about how Trump drew.
And so I'm going to share another one now. This one is from Washington, D.C., June 6th.
We have a white supremacist, fascist, misogynist, woman-hating, environment spoiling, science-denying, straight-up fascist orange Hitler in the fucking White House. And we are going to have to drive him out. Say with me. Drive him out. 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 Drive him out.
So we just wanted to share a few clips to give you a sense of some of what was in the streets this past Saturday that we want to actually spread and grow this upcoming Sunday. And so for those who are just joining, we're talking about how to make Trump's birthday a manifestation of not just a gigantic fuck Trump, but a declaration of the people demanding take your fascist, white supremacist ass, your whole crew, and get the F out. And we're going to be in the streets until you do that. So that is, that's what we're getting into. And I want to share with everyone what two generous donors have written to us. They have put up a match for $1,500. And I want to share with you what they had to say. And then I'm going to bring Coco back on to talk more about Sunday, and keep those comments coming. I am taking a look at your questions and comments, and we will be getting to them shortly. So this is what two donors had to say on why they were giving this matching donation. Over the last 3 years, we have seen disdain for human rights at an unprecedented level. We have seen the current administration praise white nationalists as very fine people. We have seen attacks on minorities, women, children, immigrants, the media, and anyone that doesn't agree with this administration. The brutal lynching of George Floyd was the spark that ignited the fires of change. We must not back down. So heartening to see people rising up to face the repression of this brutal fascist regime. We are so proud to be able to donate to Trump Pence Out Now from D&D, who donated and are matching your donations. So make sure that you donate. You can donate at refusefascism.org. You can give via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. And you can find all those options at refusefascism.org. Give $45 if you can to get 45 out of the White House. Give $14 for the June 14th protests. So I want to see if I can bring in Sarah one more time. We're going to try. Let's see.
Yeah, hi, sorry.
Let me see. I'm going to check on my phone to see if I can see you. Keep talking, Sarah. It's so good to see you. I'm sorry for difficulties.
Something's going wrong with app permissions here. It knows there's a camera and a microphone. It just won't ask their permission. But anyway, let's see if staying on the phone works.
It's still, I still don't see you coming up. I'm so sorry. But I think people can hear you.
Okay.
Now.
Okay, so people can hear. Okay, well.
We just can't see you.
Okay. Well, do as you like with that.
You know, if there's anything that you want to say about why, you know, what we're calling for this Sunday, why it's important. You know, there's many people saying that we should just wait for elections. Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, no, we can't afford to wait for the elections. And let me make something clear right out of the gate. As a Democrat, personally, who belongs to this nonpartisan organization, Refuse Fascism, we really can't afford to wait for the election. I am not saying don't vote. I'm going to vote. I support all my friends who are doing electoral volunteering. You know, people have died for the right to vote. It's a very important right, and we must exercise it while we still have it. However, I think just looking at Georgia today and the results for Georgia today, what was it? 140,000 more votes for Trump than for Biden. And Trump didn't even need the votes because he's running, as far as I know, essentially unopposed. This is, and what's been going on with the election in Georgia with the, you know, long lines, machines not working, ballot, you know, problems, everything that's going on there is a test drive for November. It's my conviction that the GOP is planning to pull out all the stops in terms of election interference, cyber stuff, hybrid warfare, hacking, voting machines, voter suppression. And this is all on top of the Electoral College problem that got us in 2016, where Hillary won by 3 million votes in the popular vote, and it still wasn't enough. I would like to point out that Nancy Pelosi herself has said that she doesn't think that get Trump to concede and leave office unless there is an overwhelming, that was her word, victory in November. Well, American presidential elections, even in normal circumstances, are not won by overwhelming margins. That's just not a thing that happens anymore. So she must know, as much as any of the rest of us do, that we're not on track for that, even in a free and fair election. And I'm sure she knows that if the Republicans have their way, this election is not going to be free and fair. They've been setting up all the mechanisms, and we have not been able to do the investigations. We've not been able to do the legislative reforms because Trump, that we would need to take care of that. So I really, as passionate an advocate as I am of America's system, and as you know, I volunteered, full-time for Hillary in 2016, trying to keep Trump out of office. I don't see how we can rely on the election. As far as I'm concerned, that is dicing with human lives that are being threatened and ended right now by this brutality, by surveillance, by this regime's destruction of democratic norms, by the coronavirus, you name it. These are all lives that are hanging in the balance right now, not after November. None of that is going to wait for us, and I don't think we can afford to wait either. So that's what I have to say about that. Hopefully that's of some help. Did you get me? Is the sound working?
Yes, sorry. I had turned myself off.
Okay.
In order to feature.
Did that come through?
Yeah. We were able to see to hear you but not see you, and so sound wise you came through great. So thank you for getting into that, Sarah, because it is a big question on many people's minds, and it was good to hear from your perspective. For those who have good friends that shared this with them, this is the Inside with Out Now Live. We're talking about what is the fitting way to celebrate Trump's birthday. Sunday, June 14th, we're calling people to be in the streets in DC, 4 p.m., Lafayette Park, and everywhere. Our power is in the streets, demanding Trump Pence out now. And I want to take a minute to look at some comments. So there have been some comments coming in, and I'm hoping that I can have Coco share her thoughts, and then I'll pull Sarah in separately because of the technology. One comment that's come in was, I haven't been seeing fascist counter-protesting at the latest protest. What should we make of that?
I mean, I have, do you want me to wait for questions or jump in? I mean, I've noticed that too. I've thought about that, and I think there's a few things. And I also want to say I really agree with what Sarah said. A little to add to what she said and segue maybe into this question is, this regime, I mean, Trump has openly called out again and again his fascist shock troops. He did it with, he's talking about the Second Amendment in his speech from the Rose Garden, and saying, I've got bikers for Trump on my side. I think one thing that is revealed by the fact that these fascists have not gone into these massive protests is it does show that they're not all powerful. From what I can see, they went into these little towns with their, displaying their guns. And I saw one video of a march going right right by them, completely defiant, which is really right. But I think that doesn't mean that we can dismiss them and say, you know, they're done, or Trump is this fascist regime is by far not done, and this fascist movement is not by far not done, which is why we need to get them off the levers of power as quickly as possible. And if they do get through this crisis and regain momentum, regain the power over the people, if they're able to crush these protests and regain the upper hand, a lot of people have said this in their speeches on Saturday, it will not go back to normal. It will be worse because they will go for revenge, and it will be a reign of terror that, you know, as Sarah said, these are people's lives on the line right now. We cannot take this chance that in between now and November that they are able to crush the spirit of the people in the streets, because they will make it so that people cannot stand up again. And then, you know, who knows when we'll get a chance like this again. So I don't know if that answered that question, but, you know, I think that it does say something about these shock troops, but at the same time, it's not a reason to dismiss them.
I think that you know, you spoke from a big picture about what really is at stake and where their shock troops really are. I think that one of the comments that someone wrote that I think is also spot on is that there were Trump shock troops there. You know, those who brought their cars and tried to plow over protesters, those who are in this militarized police force beating people. Those they're part of Trump's shock troops. So I wanted to bring that in as well. Yeah. One question, and I'll pose it to you, and then I'll pose it separately to Sarah. Is on social media, I've seen a lot of, you know, this is how we can say boy bye, you know, to Trump on his birthday. We can fill his Twitter feed with pictures of Obama. Can you talk about why this is not a commensurate response to having a fascist in the White House?
Well, you know, I mean, I think the main thing is that Obama's not president anymore. And he's not going to be president. So that's one thing. The other thing is we're not actually looking at this. The point is not just to annoy Trump and Trump supporters. The point is actually to get them out of power, drive them out of power. And for that, we need a massive physical presence in the streets, of sustained nonviolent protest. And, you know, I think Sam and I were talking earlier, and Sam, you had this metaphor of, would it have been a commensurate response for, you know, in response to Hitler putting up leaders of the Weimar Republic. So, you know, I think it's, you know, while, you know, yes, people are going to put up pictures of Obama, we have to face actually that a fascist regime is going to destroy the institutions and the mechanisms that were there before. They come in through the democratic channels, and then they destroy those, and you know, democratic rights are gone. So that's what's on the line. It's the people's lives. It's you know, and I don't think, you know, speaking for myself, that the putting up Obama's picture especially in this context where people are rising up over these police murders, that is I think that response really needs to be that we not only not go accept a fascist regime, we also want to get past the things that are causing Black people and brown people to be gunned down in the street or murdered in the streets by police. And let's set our sights on something. Let's set our sights on the future and what we can really achieve if we actually first drive out this fascist regime, and then really get to work on having a society where people can thrive. I think that was a little bit of a long-winded response, but maybe Sarah might have something punchier.
Hey, can you hear me? I was not able to hear Sam during her last remarks. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you just great. So
okay, well that's good. I'm going to pose the question that I asked Coco, because you might have a different take, or some other ideas on it. We are calling, Refuse Fascism is calling for people to make June 14th, Trump's birthday, a bunker birthday for Trump, where there's mass protests demanding his removal. This Sunday, 4 p.m. at Lafayette Park in D.C. and everywhere, saying, boy, bye, pack up your fascist ass and get out and take your regime with you. A lot of people on social media, however, have been saying, oh, well, what we're going to do is we're going to fill his Twitter feed with pictures of Obama. And that's what's going to get under his skin. And that's a commensurate response. And I just was wanting to hear, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, boy. Well, first of all, let me just, I did hear Coco's response, fortunately, and I'm going to go ahead and co-sign everything that she said, especially the point that she made that, we have to remember who we're dealing with here. We are dealing with fascists. We are dealing with Stephen Miller, the baby cager, who tore, nursing infants out of mothers' arms and threw them into cages, and that we have had children die in our concentration camps. These are the people we're dealing with. If we think that a sick burn on the internet is going to be enough, now, mind you, as somebody who writes satire and so on and so forth, I'm not against that. I'm all for that. If you want to tweak his nose on internet, go for it all day. That's great. But there is no sense of shame that you're going to get under his skin with. He really doesn't care what people say about him as long as they're talking about him. He's one of those narcissists that any attention is good attention. He certainly has a huge ego, but I think if sick burns were going to get him out of office, it would have done so by now. We've been at that for 3 years, and it hasn't made a dent. He throws his tantrums, he oppresses some more people, and then we move on to the next thing. We have to remember that we're in a time where, as the Yeats poem says, right now the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. That's the equation that has to change. Our passion and intensity match that of the fascists. Now, what we've seen in the last couple of weeks with these demonstrations, those I think have moved the needle. They have moved the needle because people have made clear that they are willing to nonviolently put their bodies on the line, and that they are willing to shut it down. And this is forced attention to the issue. This is exactly the energy that we've needed. Now, all that said, let me get into the fact that I'm aware that shit is complicated. We have a virus going on, and every time I bring this up, I get people going, well, but I'm susceptible to COVID. I can't go out into the streets and protest, or I'm out in the middle of I'm in a farm in the middle of nowhere. What am I supposed to do? Well, there's always something you can do. There's always more that you can do than you think. We tend to talk ourselves out of what is possible before we've even tried it. Um, and other countries have shown us the way. Even the civil rights movements of the US have shown what collective power really is once it gets going. If you can, if you're in a position to put your body on the line nonviolently to stop fascism, then I think you should consider doing that. But if you can't, or you're not ready, there are a zillion other things you can do. First of all, you should be staunchly in the corner of the people who are doing that. You should be, donating to bail funds. You should be um, donating supplies for protest. If you can't donate, you have time. Hopefully, you can signal boost, and not just signal boost Obama pictures. That's great, but signal boost the donation sites. Signal boost footage of these cops and these National Guard and these unidentified military forces that are bashing in heads. Signal boost that. Debunk uh, what's going on with who will listen, who's gotten a distorted picture from distorted media or Fox News or OANN or whoever. Anybody who will sit still and listen to you do that debunking, do that. Have the uncomfortable conversations about race. And there are so many things. You have whatever money you have, whatever time you have. Those you can give even when you can't give your physical presence out in the streets. And for those who are just hesitant to put themselves in the streets, I I know it's a bit of a scary time because of the coronavirus and because of the quality of the response. But honestly, if you've never tried it, there is a very special energy to being out there physically that is very hard to replace. And I have friends of all persuasions. I have friends who live in wheelchairs who have gone and done die-ins, and they're very experienced activists. They too will tell you that there's a special energy that comes from being with other people in the streets, outside the offices, whatever. The collective energy is very empowering, and you will come away being less scared almost all the time. That's been my experience, is that you come away from these experiences, even when you knew that fascists were going to be there, being there in a sheer overwhelming number of people who are there to say no to fascism and yes to humanity and yes to democracy. It's an experience like no other. So if you've never tried it, I would say, and you're in a position to try, I would say try it at least once. Grab a buddy, grab some buddies, rent a bus, get out there and see if I'm not right, because that's what I hear from almost everybody, and that's been my personal experience. Is you feel so much less helpless if you get a chance, and if you can't be out there personally, you can still get some of that feeling by being there for the people who are out there in a really meaningful, concrete, material way. And you can do that remotely. We can thank that technology. But just insults and clever memes, those aren't what are going to do it. Using that technology to concretely support those who are risking themselves to end this fascist nightmare.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Just to resituate this a bit, Coco and Sarah were both talking about what commensurate response is to what we face, and why just tweeting Obama pictures on Trump's birthday, it just doesn't cut it. What we face is a fascist regime that is not slowing down, is actually escalating, and we need to escalate the nonviolent protests, and we need to do that in a mass way this Sunday. There is no more of a fitting way to celebrate his birthday than manifesting the demand, Trump Pence out now, in the streets in a way that the whole world will rejoice in seeing. And I think that I am going to show you guys a video that I think represents a little bit of the spirit of what we want to bring out this Sunday. And then I will pass it back to Coco for a little bit. Though some people have mentioned that they wanted to give, but they couldn't see the sign. So I'm putting up right now our Venmo. All donations will be matched. It's Refuse-Fascism. Some people had asked about props for DC. Any props are going to require funding. We need to make a lot more posters, thousands and thousands of them. So we hope that you'll donate today. You can also give at donate.refusefascism.org. So I want to show you a video that I think represents the spirit. It is a chant that one of our volunteers did to the tune of Savage by the Stallion. And you can find it on our social media at Refuse Fascism, but I'm going to play it for your enjoyment. On our social media, you'll find other ideas on ways to be manifesting this demand in a way out on the streets this Sunday. So we hope that you'll check it out.
He's a fascist, racist, orange, nasty, dangerous, crazy, trashy, acting stupid. What's happening? What's happening? He's a fascist, dangerous, orange, nasty, dangerous, crazy, trashy, acting stupid. What's happening? What's happening? He's a fascist. Donald Trump. He's a fascist, racist.
So that's a little bit of the spirit that we hope that you will take up. You can find the Facebook event for this Sunday to share with others for 4 p.m. at Lafayette Park in DC and everywhere on Facebook. You can find images to share, including a bunker birthday image on Instagram and on Twitter that we hope you will share. I'm going to bring Coco in to share some final remarks that she might have, and the same with Sarah. And then I'm going to give people a few ways that they can act right away.
Maya. So I thought that was a really great video to end on. There's so much creativity out there and so much artistry and so much genuine sentiment and hatred for what this regime represents. And one of the things that's been so beautiful about these last 15 days is how much people are rejecting that culture of just disgusting, me first, racism, misogyny, cruelty as the point, the white supremacy, rejecting all that and, you know, opening up people's arms, you know, together to the possibility of a whole different future. And if we really help people to see what kind of future will is on the horizon if this regime remains in power at a time when people are just starting to feel their strength, are shedding that helplessness that they've had for the last 3 years or more, and really giving people a sense of look how far, look at what's been accomplished in 15 days. Imagine if we continue to really driving this regime out, getting that white supremacist finger off the nuclear trigger, what it will mean for the climate, what it will mean for Black lives, what it will mean for immigrants in concentration camps. These are all realities that are still with us because of this regime right now. It's going to be a blocking issue on any struggle for social justice. So with that, I think if we can bring that out in a way that's really, really, really full of energy and creativity and righteous defiance, then we will give Donald Trump a birthday to remember, and we'll give humanity a reason to rejoice. So with that, I'm going to say have fun celebrating Trump's birthday, and let's go.
Thanks, Coco. Thanks, Coco. I want to bring in Sarah. If there is anything else that you wanted to add.
Well, once again, what Coco said, the creativity and the energy that people have been bringing to this is inspiring, and reminds me yet again that we need to flip the equation around. For 3 years, we've been coming up with the reasons why we can't do this. Why we can't get Trump out of the White House until November or at all, or basically we're on this ride until he decides we're getting off of it. And that's just not true. We need to start taking that brain power that we were using to think of why all the reasons why we couldn't or we shouldn't, and start using it to think of the reasons that we must, and the ways that we can, and all the beautiful strategies and methods and artistry that we can employ for that, and really turn this into a joyful. I think it can be a celebration. It's not a celebration of him, and it's not a celebration of his birthday, but it is a celebration of, our collective power and our collective spirit, and a resurgence of American awareness, which is something that has come out, if you think about it. This hideous police murder, this hideous murder of a man for nothing more than the crime of being Black in America. 8 minutes and 46 seconds of strangulation. It's hard to imagine a more torturous, death than that. And yet, coming out of it has been this overwhelming power, this response from Black Lives Matter and allies, and it's bringing the awareness that more is possible than we thought, that our masters are not all powerful, and that we haven't really flexed our muscles yet, anywhere near to the extent that we think we thought we could, or anywhere near to the extent that we can. But like I said, these protests are showing some of the power that's possible. As Coco said, think of what happens if we continue them. Think if in addition to the general demand that Black Lives Matter, that and then that democracy must be a thing, police brutality must end. If we add the urgent demand for Trump, Pence to go, because we all know that they are not going to be the ones to fix these issues. They're not going to be the ones to bring racial justice to America. They're not going to be the ones to reform policing, and they're not going to be the ones to make our elections free and fair again. None of this can happen while fascists are in power. It's just madness to think that can be done while they are still there. So in addition to these larger human demands and about the planet, all of these crucial human survival demands, for us to live and thrive as human beings in this world, we have to add that first step, which is get the Nazis out. None of this happens while they're still there. So we have to get them all out. And then there will be so much more that's possible, so much more that we can work for. And I'm hoping that the ties we can forge now among each other, wherever we're coming from in life, and from the systems in this country, that if we can come together to do that, to get these fascists out of power, then I don't see what we can't go on to do from there. So let's turn around the thinking. Let's think of what is possible instead of what's not possible. And let's reclaim our power and our creativity and our courage. And that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Coco, for both of your remarks. I think that they were extremely helpful. I want to give people who maybe are just tuning in, maybe have been tuning in and have some questions as to what it is we're calling for. I want to let people know we are saying that the most fitting way to celebrate Trump's birthday is to get in the streets and protest to demand Trump Pence out now. In Washington, D.C. at 4 p.m., this Sunday, June 14th, we'll be in Lafayette Park, and we're calling on you to hold a protest wherever you are. Be sure to use the hashtags #BoyBye and Bunker Birthday to let Trump and his whole crew know they are on notice. There is a movement that is committed to driving their whole fascist regime out, and to do so now, right now. So I encourage everybody to make sure that they send their ideas. What are your plans? We want to hear them. You can post them in the comments now. You can send an email to info@refusefascism.org. We want to know, where will you be celebrating? And by celebrating, we mean protesting. We're talking about nonviolent protests. We're talking about in DC having speak outs and doing chants, like having a group of people doing a version of middle fingers in the air, boy bye, right in front of the White House, doing to Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday, fuck your birthday, Donald. I'm trying to think of some of the other creative ideas that people have come up with. People chanting, singing, you're about to lose your job, outside the White House. So we want to hear your ideas too. So again, post your thoughts on social media, or email us at info@refusefascism to connect. You're connected with us on social media, but again, we are at Refuse Fascism. Be sure to follow us. That way you can find out more of what we're planning. But envision speak out, chanting, singing, maybe marching, picture music. And we want to know what your plans are. If you have visuals, we want to hear them as well. You can find posters for printing at refusefascism.org. Along with many other resources. We want to make sure that you make and share your plans. Get your butt to DC if you can. And help spread the word. Sign up to the event on Facebook, retweet us on Twitter, and very importantly, donate generously. Right now, you can have your donation matched to get Trump a one-way ticket the fuck out of the White House and take his whole fascist regime with him. We're counting on you to help make this bunker birthday possible. A huge protest in front of the White House raising the demand Trump Pence out now. We've got stickers and posters that we need to get into the hands of people in the streets. And we need your help to kick this white supremacist out now. I mean, seriously, what could be a better gift to the whole planet than getting this regime out right now? So I put up our Venmo, refuse-fascism, And you can also go to donate.refusefascism.org. I want to thank everybody who's already given. And a great act that you can also do is by sharing this fun campaign that you see, posting it up on your social media. You know, you can share, I'm giving $14 towards these June 14th, celebration protests. And I challenge, and tag people to match your contribution. Maybe you're giving $45 to get 45 the fuck out. Post it with the link so that other people can join you and join this movement. Truly, the most fitting way to celebrate Trump's birthday is by getting people organized to drive him the fuck out. And we need to be in the streets. We cannot drop this. We need to see this through. The Trump-Pence regime poses a catastrophic danger to the whole world, and the whole world will take heart if we rise to another level of determined resistance. We've begun, but should we fail to see this through, this and every struggle for justice will be set back. If we succeed, and we can succeed, we can begin to force the boots of violent oppressors off the necks of our brothers and sisters. Let's go and change the course of history, not for ourselves alone, but for all of humanity. Trump Pence out now. With that, I'm going to thank Sarah and Coco for joining us again, and encourage everyone to start sharing and making their plans. And I'll see you in the streets on Sunday.